I can't even count how many times I've had to climb through the window of a first generation Tacoma. Welcome guys, this is Automotive Anonymous, and of all the trucks I've reviewed on my channel, this old Toyota is likely one of the rarest. It's a 2002 Toyota Tacoma, which is part of the first generation, but it's rare because it's a four-door. It's a TRD off-road, and it even has the optional rear locker. So it's a very capable, immaculate example, and potentially the best of the first generation Toyota Tacoma. These were only produced between 1995 up until 2004, and they're very rarely seen as a four-door configuration. But even 20 years ago, trucks were designed for hauling lumber and doing work, not hauling bodies, so you really don't see the four-door configuration very often. So if you're considering a first-gen Tacoma, maybe to be like a hunting rig or an off-road adventure mobile with your buddies, you potentially haven't considered the four-door. First, because they're hard to find. Second, they're pretty expensive. And third, the longer wheelbase gives you a slightly worse breakover angle. But hear me out, I think this could be the best off-road Tacoma of the first generation because you can actually fit full-size adults in the back seat, meaning if you ever high center or get stuck, you're gonna have some motivated labor to help you get unstuck. And with that said, I think you'll ultimately be in better shape than taking the trails alone or not having as much help as you can fit in this one. And what's crazy is this nearly 22-year-old truck that idles really smoothly and has about 185,000 miles, which by the way is about 7.5 trips around the earth. Costs about $17,000 in today's money, which is watered down from what this cost brand new, and it was about $22,000 before its extra options. So is this one heck of a bargain for the value that you're getting, or is it hard to believe? Personally, I'm still having trouble wrapping my brain around the fact that these are so expensive. What else ages like an old Tacoma or a 4Runner? Not many things other than maybe a McDonald's cheeseburger with all of its preservatives. But not many other things hold together as well as this one has. Even the dashboard and the door panels, no cracks, no creaks. It really feels very solid. But I do have to admit that I'm personally pretty sad that this is only the 4-speed auto rather than the 5-speed manual. One of the original vehicles I learned how to drive manual on was one of my buddy's first generation extended cab Tacomas. And I later owned two Tacomas, the 2nd gen and the 3rd generation. Both of them I got with the 4-cylinder 5-speed. I even put over 60,000 miles on my 3rd gen Tacoma before trading it in. And these are really fun trucks, and I surprisingly do like the 4-speed. It handles better than I thought, and it shifts gears pretty firmly. And at 185,000 miles and mostly bone stock in the powertrain department, minus the basic K&N aftermarket intake, these things are dang near bulletproof. You unfortunately do have a timing belt on this configuration rather than a timing chain like the smaller 4-cylinder had, but you can easily pop off the valve cover, service that thing in, under an hour easily if you know what you're doing. And there's quite a bit of room to work on under the hood, maybe with the exception of changing the rear bank spark plugs. But otherwise, everything is mechanical, easy to get to. You can even easily rev the engine from under the hood with the cable throttle body. So, even 190 horsepower, 220 pound-feet of torque, it does pretty well. And here's that 0 to 60. Keep in mind we're at about 3,700 feet of altitude. 0 to 60, density altitude's about 3,100 feet, so this one's down on power about 10%. I'm not gonna brake rev it because we don't wanna over torque anything because those ginormous wheels are not gonna break free and spin. So let's see what it can do. Sounds good. And true 0 to 60 came in at 11.76 seconds, so that's not surprising. 190 horsepower only goes so far at altitude, and when you're moving some ginormous wheels, I'd say that's really not too bad, especially when you're turning almost a 31-inch tire, because these are 265/70/16s, and what came factory on this TRD off-road was a measly 225/75/15, which is why this truck was rated for about 17 city, about 19 highway, but the max capacity of a 2-wheel drive, smaller cab, smaller motor configuration was actually up to about 22 on the highway, which is pretty impressive for 20 years ago. And if you haven't already noticed, those are 3rd gen Tacoma wheels, so the previous owner had some style on this one. And when it's time to drop the hood, that's the sound of metal clanking on metal, because none of this aluminum, plastic, fiberglass nonsense F-150. Likewise the bed. It's not dampened, it just drops. That's the way trucks should be. It's not $3,000 multi-bending flex tailgate with a handle to climb up, or the sensors to lift it with your foot, or the remote drop option on their key. This is the key that you get. But on a real truck like this, even though it has a composite bed liner, even though the payload's not much over 1,000 pounds on these old things with the TRD off-road suspension, it's actually used. There's not the bed cover that protects the bed from raindrops and being used. You're not worried about scratching the paint on an old truck. Just use it. Don't be a pavement princess. Don't be a giant cab, small bed truck poser that has such a useless 4.5 foot bed that you have to tow a trailer behind your truck to actually use it for work purposes. Buy something like this that you can actually use, enjoy, and not care about basic truck use, leaving it out in the rain and the snow. Oh no, it's totaled. I will say though that I actually like the chrome bumper on this, and I'm usually not a fan of chrome, and this even has the trailer hitch, which is pretty cool. And then what's extra impressive to me is even though this one fits bigger tires and it does rub a little bit, the front Bilstein shocks look factory to me. The rear leaf springs without a block or any hockey puck lift also look really factory. And there's basically no rust that I can find on the frame rails under this. This one looks clean because these third gens were known to rust out, but Toyota did replace a lot of the frames on the Tacomas, even ones when they otherwise would have been considered totaled. Maybe this has it, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, but all I know is that frame looks clean. Back in high school, I had two friends who had a first gen Tacoma. They were both extended cabs with the 3.4 liter V6 and the 5-speed manual. One of which was basically the best example in the world, probably. They had 80-something thousand miles, never totaled, brand new, basically, from interior to exterior. And the other friend had a totaled 98 that had like 275,000 miles, and it ran perfectly. But with the old extended cab, unlike the second and third gen Axis cab, you can't hinge the back seats, so you'd have to get out of your driver or front passenger seat, recline the seat forward, let someone hop in the back. And that was a hassle. So sometimes during lunch, if we would sit in the truck or we'd take it somewhere, my buddy wouldn't get out of the front seat. And rather than pull him out Grand Theft Auto style, because that's not acceptable behavior, me and my other friend actually got in a pretty good habit of being able to push and slide the rear window open and then climb on into the extended cab. You have to be of the slender variety and able-bodied to do that. It's not something I really necessarily would care to do right now, but it was pretty fun. Lots of good memories, and I can't tell you how many dozens of times we did that. I think it actually got to the point of my friend didn't want us doing that anymore, but we still did it anyways. I think it's time to take it back on the road. I'll share some driving impressions, and then we'll meet back here for my final thoughts. Initial driving impressions of the 02 four-door Tacoma. A full steering wheel lockout. There's a little bit of rubbing. But it's mostly on the mud guard and something you could easily cut out and fix. Otherwise, visibility is really good in this little four-door. I feel huge sitting in the front seat at 5'11", and the back seats can actually fit full-size adults, even if it's just barely. The overall footprint of this is under 17 feet, which is literally amazing because a brand new four-door Tacoma is closer to 19 feet. They really aren't that much smaller than full-size trucks in terms of their length. And they're basically what full-size trucks were during the time that this thing was coming out 2 generations ago now. But overall, it's really cool. Those gauges, I think, are timeless. It even has the rear locker on this one with 4 high, 4 low. But I am still disappointed that it's a 4-speed automatic, although this is the first time I've driven an automatic Tacoma that wasn't a 3rd gen TRD Pro. Everything else I've driven back in high school, and then the 2 that I personally own, they were all 5-speed manuals, which is the way to go. But if you're rock crawling, you know, you're probably gonna be just fine with the automatic. Or if you want an old nostalgic 1st gen Tacoma that's clean, like this, and you can't drive a manual, then I guess this might be the one for you. But you have the A-pillar grab handle because there's no airbag up there like the new ones have. And it's such a narrow vehicle that I can easily reach across. There's no doubt why the 3rd gen 4Runner and the 1st gen Tacoma do so well off-road, sometimes better than the new ones. You just throw a Meteor all-terrain tire like this has, and it's gonna do a really good job. But you can definitely feel the extra weight of the wheels, the 190 horsepower. It's having to work for it. It's not quite as fast as these things were brand new at sea level, but I'm having a blast. This is a really fun truck. Huge side mirror, you can basically see everything. And with how small the cabin is, you can see right down the middle. This is a really cool truck. Honestly, I'm not surprised that they're asking almost $17,000 for this one when a piece of crap with 300,000 miles is going for $9 grand somewhere else. This one's actually pretty good. And with 185,000 miles, these are known to go well over 400,000 if you would just replace the timing belt and do the basic maintenance. So this 20-year-old Tacoma V6 potentially has more life in its engine and transmission than some new vehicles built these days, which is sad and impressive all at the same time. Visibility is seriously amazing in this way. You lose in safety features of the modern ones. You make up in being able to see through all these thin A, B, and C pillars. And the seats are even pretty comfortable. My backpack's having a good time. I'm sliding around a little bit, but there's so much body roll with this lifted setup, old suspension. I would definitely replace it if it was me, especially if you're gonna go off-roading before it breaks on you when you're in the middle of a trail. But it's a pretty squishy ride with all the extra sidewall you gain on these wheels and tires. So it's actually surprisingly comfortable for a 20-year-old truck that's body on frame. Well guys, this is a pretty fun Tacoma, and it's a really clean example of what a four-door first gen was. It almost feels like it's time capsuled in a way, even though it has close to 200,000 miles. So if you regularly watch my videos, you know that this was a more low-key, more subjective, less objective review. I want to know your thoughts and opinions if you like this style or if you like my typical style of review. If you're new here, thanks for watching to the end. I really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video or if it was helpful to you in any way, please consider liking the video. Subscribe if you want to watch more. I always post at least once or twice a week. And otherwise, I don't have any complaints about the first gen. If I was going to buy this, I would probably spend about $4 to $5 grand to really fix it up and make sure that I know what it's capable of. I would go through the suspension, I'd put a new set of tires on it, and then if I didn't have the service records, I'd probably have the timing belt replaced so that I know it's good for the next 90,000 miles. But otherwise, it rides well for what it is, and I'm pretty impressed. If you want to buy this one, it's at Twin Falls Subaru. I'll link it below. Otherwise, take care, and I hope to see you on the next one. See ya.